background behind me, and yes, still new getting glasses. Today's video is just going to be a little bit different than the normal content. I'm going to start things off by talking about my new upload schedule that should be up and running in the next couple of weeks. So the new tournament upload schedule, instead of it being like whenever I feel like it, it's going to be Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 6 a.m. Eastern time, or Eastern Toronto time. So content is still going to be vignette focused with goaltending, vlogs, summer vlogs, story times, and much more to come in the near future. This channel is also my personal channel and a goaltending channel from now on. Then I also have my sister's channel, which is a family channel, which is Planning at Family, which we don't really upload on. But anyways, today's video I'm going to be sharing with you an interview / podcast episode I did with the former OHL player, and I'm going to be inserting that interview right here. Welcome back to Kindness Chats, the podcast in which we embrace on a journey through motivation, inspiration, and kindness in the world today. Whether it be mental health, overcoming an injury, overcoming an illness, or overcoming obstacles that life has to throw at us, please join me as we embrace this journey of life and kindness. In this episode, I am joined by the host of the Heroic Minds podcast, Ben Fanelli. In 2009, Ben went through a serious head injury and had to step away from the game of hockey for 2 years. In this episode, we discuss motivation, influential and inspiring people, and podcasts. We also discuss what was going through his mind during his recovery. Here is the first episode of Kindness Chat. I combined 3 topics together, so you have motivation, influential, and such inspiring people, and then podcasts.
Cool.
So, what does motivation mean to you?
Wow, that's an awesome question. What does motivation mean to me? Motivation to me, and obviously there's a bunch of different approaches you could take to this, but I think motivation is just willpower to do something that takes, like, you have a reason to push through something that you otherwise don't have to do. I think to me would be willpower. And I think we can see that in a super simple point of view of hunger, the will to find food and eat it, which we do on a daily basis, is the willpower it takes to, get up off the couch to go to the kitchen to make some food. Okay, that's one way you can look at it. The other side is the willpower to push through something that you don't necessarily have to push through. And you might have a reason deep inside you that's different than the person next to you and different than the person next to them. So to me, motivation is very much a deep-rooted willpower to want to do something for a need or a want. And that could be a need or a want for you personally, or something external for someone else. Just like the willpower to show up for someone. Well, you know what, that you might not have the motivation to do that, but for some reason, deep rooted in someone else, they there's something in them that is finding an energy and a reason to act, which I think is kind of cool to know that we have that inside us. Like, I think a lot of times on a conscious level, we don't really know how powerful we can be, how powerful we are, until we have a reason to. And there's lots of research and studies to show that. We see that in a lot of psychology and philosophy, especially in the Holocaust, things that people were able to live through, and they had motivation and reason to. And it's just kind of like, generally people wouldn't have the ability to put up with that kind of stress and fear and discomfort. yet they have the, I would say, the motivation to, or again, willpower to do it for a deep reason. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
No, that's all right. So I found this quote while like looking up motivation and stuff. So it goes, sometimes we're tested not to show our weaknesses, but to discover your strengths. So what do you think this quote means?
Sometimes we are, sorry, can you say that again?
Sometimes we're tested not to show our weaknesses, but to discover your strengths.
I think that's remarkable. I think that very much comes down to the lens that we decide to look through when it comes to challenge, right? There are a lot of people that, especially right now in this time we're in, we could easily, and for a lot of reasons, look negatively at this. And for a lot of real, true reasons, people are getting the short end of the stick and are worse off right now for a bunch of different reasons, economically, healthcare, etc. So I think it depends what lens you decide to look through in this situation. Are a lot of people going to have to go with less and go without what we used to have? Yes. Are some people going to have to change the way they work? Yes. Are some people going to have to change their entire career? Yes. And you decide what lens you're going to look through when you take that into consideration. So let's say I have to do a huge job change, a full job switch, completely change what I'm doing. I was in, let's say, for example, someone was in accounting and now they have to go into real estate or they have to work part-time at a coffee shop. Is that on the surface very unfortunate? And will the individual maybe have to change certain things in their life? For sure. But ultimately, we have the lens that we decide to look through, which will ultimately pull the strengths out of us. So we can look through the lens of this is terrible, I can't handle this, there's no way we're going to get through this. Okay, well, that's going to shed light on the weaknesses. But if we look through it on another lens of, wow, this is going to be a huge change to my life. I might have to move. I might have to figure out ways to, maybe I can't stop at Starbucks every day. I have to make my own coffee. Maybe I have to sell the sports car because I can't afford it anymore. Well, to go with less and still live a fulfilling, happy life, you're going to have to discover a lot of hidden strengths inside you to be able to do that. So to answer your question, I think it very much, to me, it goes right to the idea of, okay, what lens are you going to choose to look at this situation? And when you do choose, I would say, the latter of that lens of looking at things as an opportunity, even though it's a challenge, you're going to discover a lot of strengths you have that you didn't even realize you had.
Good answer. The last question I have for motivation is, what keeps you motivated?
I think what keeps me motivated is a little bit of what I've touched on already, is we just don't know how powerful we are. I think on a collective level of the human race, human species, whatever you refer to it as. I mean, look at what Tesla or SpaceX just did the other day. It was like, you know what? The U.S. has been traveling on Russian rockets for the last 9 years. Let's create a rocket from the States and let's just go to the moon. Let's just do that. And they did it. And then one of the rockets separated from the capsule and then landed perfectly on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Like what? I think 3 years ago we would think there's no way that we could ever do that. Yet it's happening. And not only that, we're able to actually watch the entire thing streamed in HD on our TVs at home. Like, who knows what we're capable of as, a collective group. And at the same time, who knows what we're capable of as individuals. And so that, to be honest, is what keeps me motivated. So when something negative happens, and I hate to come back to that idea of the negative, but when something negative happens, to me, what keeps me motivated, even through my journey, I mean, if there's any big message ever, any overarching message people should take from my story, is that who the heck really knows what we're capable of? Like, the amount of things started as a dream and people had an idea of, I'm going to try and do this, even though no one thinks it could be possible, and they do it. So we just don't know. So to me, that open-endedness, that kind of limitless potential that we have as humans, is what keeps me motivated.
Okay, so switching to influential and inspiring people. So you had your story about your head injury and time spent in the Ontario Hockey League with the Kitchener Rangers.
shared in everyday hockey here. So what was going through your head injury like, and take us through your story.
In my story itself, or what story? Sorry.
This, like, your journey with your injury that occurred back in 2009.
Oh wow. What was the story that was going through my mind, or what was going through my mind?
So, like, yeah.
Well, it was a lot of learning, I think, which I didn't really realize was happening. I mean, now that I study this stuff, I have a better understanding. But it was a lot of I didn't know what was going on, but because I had an open mind and was willing to try different things, the biggest thing I would say is there was so much uncertainty. There was so much what if. There wasn't a ton of research, like specific. It's not like we break a wrist and you go to the doctor and it's like, hey, here's what you do, and it should be healed in exactly 6 weeks, and then you move to step 3, and then you move to step 4, and then by steps 5 or 6, you won't even remember you broke it, and you'll be back. There was none of that. I don't even think that exists now, let alone back in 2009 when research was 10 years prior. So what was going through my mind was, okay, so no one has any answers for me. Why don't I just open my mind and have the will to try anything? Because who knows? Again, going back to your last question in the motivation side is like, okay, who really knows? So I looked up anything I could that at that time, 2009, on the internet that is apparently help the brain heal or increase neuroplasticity. And I tried doing all of that, changing my diet, doing balance drills, brain puzzles, the list goes on, certain massages. So what was going through my mind was a lot. It was, okay, let's look at everything we can and let's try everything. If we're doing everything, maybe let's say we're doing 10 things and 9 of them don't work, but 1 of them does. Okay, then we're doing something right. And that was my approach.
So going back to the motivation aspect, what kept you motivated to get back on the ice, and like what and or who inspired you?
A lot of people inspired me. There was as a collective group, the hockey community and specifically the Kitchener-Waterloo community supported me so much. I knew it would be absolutely amazing to be able to return in front of such a selfless, incredible community. So that was one thing. Lance Armstrong was another massive inspiration for me. And one of the quotes from his book that I'll never forget is that when he came home from the hospital after being diagnosed with testicular cancer, he said he was going to work so hard that he was going to scare the cancer out of his body. He was going to work so hard that the cancer wouldn't want to be in his body anymore. And am I comparing my injury to cancer? By no means, by no stretch of imagination am I doing that. I just mean his approach to wanting to heal, wanting to recover. So I adopted that in my own context and said that, okay, I'm going to do so many different things that I'm going to force my brain to heal, as you just heard in the previous question. So he was a big inspiration. And then, a little bit of everyone. I mean, people were so selfless. My teammates, the fact that they were supporting me, and it was so exciting to see them early on in their careers, Ryan Murphy, Ben Thompson, Gabriel Landeskog, Charlie Dodaro, the list goes on of just young fellow rookies with me. To watch their careers was inspiring, and to be there with them was pretty cool. So they inspired me too. And the fact that they took time out of a really exciting point in their life to support me was really cool as well. So yeah, I'd say collectively my teammates were another part of inspiration for sure.
So going off of, when I first emailed you about my first book, which was the spinal cord and concussion, there was a sentence in response that really stood out to me, and it was, "I'm so proud of you as an inspiring athlete and more importantly as a writer." That stood out to me because, like, I never thought I could be inspiring to others. I just doing what I love. So that was like a big part of me, like taking that step into continuing to write.
Mm-hmm.
And then
amazing.
Yeah. So switching to the podcast, what is your podcast all about, and what moral are you trying to send to those listening?
I think to keep things very simple, the point of the podcast is, one, it's a resource for people to turn to that are going through any type of adversity or challenge. And the overarching message becomes, okay, let's simplify whatever challenge, whatever adversity it is that's in front of us. We're at a time where society is directing us to create or reach out or access, utilize, however you want to word it, really convoluted and complex, fabricated ideas to treat problems that are already complex enough. And I think we tend to get in our own way when that happens. And so the message of the podcast is, okay, whatever the problem is, whatever the adversity is, or whatever the goal is, let's peel back the layers and simplify this process as much as possible, so that in every decision we make, one, we have a clear mind, and two, more importantly, is that everything we're doing has a purpose. We're not doing things aimlessly just because we think it's the right thing to do. No, we know, we have purpose in what we're doing. And I think that's important, and a timely message as we start to change how we work. A lot of working from home. Okay, well, how much time are we spending quality time with family while also efficiently working? Or are we trying to blend it all together and really doing nothing successfully? So that's the biggest message in the podcast, is we have the abilities within us to do incredible, heroic, amazing things, but often we have to get out of our own way to totally realize that.
Okay, so then what are some lessons or positive messages that you have learned from the guests you've had on your podcast?
One of the most amazing messages, and I think you'll be able to relate to this, is a young woman who was the first guest I had on the podcast, named Amber Schufelt. And she said something really powerful that can resonate to anyone that wants to get their message out there, is that so many people spend so much time thinking and rethinking how they're going to share their story. Well, no, I have to edit it, and I have to edit it again, and reshape it until it's finally perfect. And they spend so much time shaping their message, they never actually end up delivering their message. And the reality is however you decide to tell your story, one, it's going to be authentic, because you're saying it without preparing it, without editing it, without adding any other jazz to it. But then at the same time, someone's going to hear it in a different way anyways, because we're all different people. So there may be a part of your story that you didn't even think would impact people, and it will. So I used to spend a lot of time shaping my messages, how I'm going to deliver it, how I'm going to say it. It has to do this, and it has to do that, and it has to follow this set of rules. And once I stopped doing that, and things came, and I just started delivering what I wanted to say, it was engaging more people. I think people realized it was authentic, and it was more of a conversation as opposed to a keynote speech that has been structured and built over the last year. And I think you make more of an impact that way. So that was one of the biggest things I learned, for sure, early on at least.
So I'm going to close things off by reading a passage that I wrote about 3 months ago. And feel free to add a comment or add anything that you can relate to, going back to your story with what happened back in 2009. Cool. So, I know that I suffered a life-changing injury not that long ago. I've been lying in hospital beds having x-rays and scans. I know I'm in a wheelchair, unable to feel or move my legs. I know I have a small possibility of being able to walk again. None of this is going to stop me. Hockey changed my life. It is the fans, staff, and players with the Plymouth Seals that have changed my life. It wasn't the hit from behind. I've learned so much over the past couple of months with this organization. I am proud to have worn the jersey 6 times. I am proud to have scored my very first goal at a home game. If there's one thing that I've learned, it is to never give up. You all saw the replay of what happened that night. Every time I laced up my skates, I thought, what if I got hurt? I got hurt. I had all the pressure forced onto my neck, and the next thing you know, I was lying on the ice motionless. I'd like to say a big thank you to the training staff of both teams that night and the paramedics. It was scary, and it was probably scary for all of you watching, whether it was on TV, as a member of both teams or in the stands. Thank you for everything, and I am proud to call myself a SEAL.
Amazing. You're a pretty courageous young girl, that's for sure. I think I think the message I concluded with of, don't worry ever how you are such an authentic, inspirational, and courageous person that more people should hear not only your story, but just hear you. As people say, actions speak louder than words, right? And it is, I don't think anything could be any more true And I don't think that could relate any more to someone than you. I don't even think you need to worry about how you share your story. You just need to be yourself, because those attributes are so rare. The attributes that you have, your character and your empathy as well, that you've showed me, and understanding in other people what they're going through is just outstanding, especially at a young age. Like, so I want you to know I have the utmost respect for you, and I wish you nothing but the best. And I know I don't even need to wish you the best, because I know you're going to do incredible things anyways with the mindset you have. So I'm always in your corner, that's for sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Pardon?
That means a lot.
Oh, well, I truly mean it, and I'm glad you reached out so that we could do this.
So, thank you for joining me.
Of course, thank you.
There is a lot we can learn and put into use in our everyday lives from this episode. Ben explained it perfectly, and our actions do speak louder than our words. Be the person who you truly are. If you are interested in learning more about Ben and his story, or want to check out his podcast, I'll leave a link in the description below. We can't change the beginning, but we can start now and change the ending. C.S. Lewis.
Now that that's completed, I am hoping to be filming a new episode of that in the next little bit, in the next week or so. So stay tuned for that. Also, if you guys are interested, I'll leave my Instagram handle at the end of the video. That is the Instagram for this channel. Want to activate this channel, or want to listen to or ask me questions, DM me on there. Also, if you want to ask questions for Q&A, so don't leave it in the comments or on that channel when I post Ask Me a Question on my story. So yeah, that's it for now, and remember, stay positive.